Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for Women Have Needs Too. Women have needs too. Right now, I need to have some compassion. Today, we're here with Sonya Schweighardt with Hope Ministries Uganda, USA, who partnered with Hope Ministries Uganda to work with a pygmy tribe in southwest Uganda called the Batwa. The goal of Hope Ministries is to rebuild, restore, raise up, and redeem the ancient foundations that have been forgotten to one of the oldest documented African tribes. Once known as the keepers of the forest, they are now known as living scarecrows and land squatters because they are not thought to be human by local tribes. This beautiful people group is highly discriminated against. And today we're here to talk to Sonya. Sonya, just the intro to this breaks my heart. And I just can't even imagine that a human being is not even considered a human being.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me today, Linda. It's very challenging to think about in our minds. I have sat with many government officials in Uganda, and I cannot comprehend how they can even look at this people group as animals. We've been working with them personally. We've been working with them with Hope Ministries Uganda USA since 2015. And Pastor Gerald Takume has been working with them since the early 2000s. And so we've discovered that, they are people, they're human beings. It's like I tell people when I go to visit with them and share with them about the Batwa, they look exactly like we do. They have two eyes, they have two ears, they stand upright, they communicate, they play games, they sing, they laugh, they play. And so it's very difficult and hard to understand how people can look at them as animals.
So how did this all come out? So how did they, when you say keepers of the forest, let's talk a little bit about that from where they were to where they are now. But let's understand why they were considered the keepers of the forest, because I know a little bit, but I don't know a whole lot.
So the Batwa are actually one of the oldest documented African tribes, and they lived in the windy impenetrable rainforest. In the early 1990s, the government decided because the gorillas had become endangered that were living in the rainforest, that they wanted to make it a sanctuary. And in the process of making that a sanctuary, they decided to move the people groups out of the rainforest. And so the Batwa became homeless. They basically were forced out. They were put into a situation where they didn't even understand. They had lived in the rainforest for thousands of years. If you speak to some of the elders, they'll tell you that when they were sick, they knew exactly which plants to use to treat them. They would know exactly what animals to hunt in the rainforest. They knew what herbs to collect. They lived in family units. They lived in caves. They lived in the tops of trees. They were able to track even bees, to find the honey that they used. And so everything that they did was inside that rainforest. And then when they were forced out into an entire environment that they knew nothing about. They were forced into becoming into farming communities. Even what they wore was different. Pastor Gerald will describe them as, when he found them, as being naked with no clothes. They wore what they had in the rainforest. So they had like grass skirts and loincloths to cover them up. But when they came out of the rainforest, they were finding people that were dressed in normal clothes. They were scared off. People were, they just looked at them oddly. I've spoke to some of the elders and they've told me stories about, because when they lived in the rainforest, it's a little bit cooler and they had a little bit more hair on their body. And so when they came out, people looked at them as animals. And so that's kind of the history from where they began to where we find them now.
And this is happening in the 2000s. This is
Yes,
happening right now. We're not talking about the 1900s. We're not talking about the early. We're talking about today.
yes, we are talking about today.
And do you
We
have,
are,
go ahead, sorry.
I was just going to say it's sad to me because a lot of times this is a huge tourist location because of the mountain gorillas, and people come from all over the world to see them. And many times I think when they are looking around and they see some of these places that the Batwa live in that would be considered their shelters, they look more like, to me, like a hunting shelter. they probably in their minds are thinking, this is authentic Africa. This is what I came here to see. But it's not. And I've had people come with me from Kampala who are Ugandans. That's the city area. And when they came out with me to do ministry work with the Batwa, they were completely shocked. They had no idea that Ugandans still live this way in this day and time.
How many, do you have any idea how many of these, they're mostly women, right?
Yes, there's mostly women. Many of the men are not in the picture. They sadly they have turned to alcohol. Alcohol is a very easy payment for farmers. So a lot of times what will happen is they will allow a Batwa to squat on their land, and what they become is living scarecrows. And so in the process of that, their job is, because they're on the edge of the rainforest, their job is to chase away any animals that would come out to destroy crops at night. So if you can imagine a little pygmy woman, about this, yay high, under 5 foot, and she comes out and all she has to protect herself is a stick of fire. And her job is to scare away, those animals so that she can have a place to squat and to live, and to make do for her and her child, or children.
So
The
that's why
men,
they're named the living scarecrows.
Yes, that's why they're called the living scarecrows. And so often, alcohol, Uganda has the largest number of distilleries in all of Africa. And so alcohol is very inexpensive and cheap. And so what happens a lot of times is they will pay them with alcohol instead of paying them in shillings, which is the currency there. I've run into family units there, mothers with little children, 3-year-old children, and they have their alcohols like in little pouches. And so you'll look into their little pocket and they might have a pouch of alcohol, because that's all the mother had to give to her child, because that was what she earned for squatting on that farmer's land.
Wow. So I'm trying to get an idea of when they were brought out, and was it the year 2000 was when they were pushed out of the jungle?
It was in the mid 1990s.
Mid 1990s. How many were there at that time?
Before they were forced out, my understanding from the research that I have read was that there was over 70,000, and now we have under 10,000.
What happened to them? Where'd the other 60,000 go?
Some were killed, and the moving them from the rainforest. A lot of them just starved to death. They didn't have any way to survive. They couldn't hunt. They couldn't go back into the rainforest anymore. It was illegal for them to go in. They had to figure out a whole new way of survival. And so many of them died of starvation. Because they're treated as animals, we have seen children being stolen, and used as human sacrifices. We've had girls and women that are raped because they are used as prescriptions by witch doctors. And so if a man from another tribe has HIV, AIDS, back pain, whatever it may be, the women are used as a prescription, so they will rape them. And they think in their minds that they're going to get better. We've had people who have just walked across to somebody's garden and they would accuse them of stealing, and so they would kill them, and nothing would be done because they were Batwa.
And
So,
the government, okay, I just, I'm speechless about this. It just really hurts me, and I'm bothered by it. How did you learn about the Batwa and what was going on with them, and how did you get involved?
well, it's kind of a God story, really. My husband and I have been praying for a number of years. We knew we wanted to do ministry at some point in our lives. Just to kind of backtrack a little bit, we have a very large family. We've adopted 12 children, and half of those children are from West Africa and from Liberia. And but in that process, we've just always had a heart for missions and just a heart to reach out and to do work. And so we were just praying a lot. We had taken one of our daughters over to Uganda. She's a singer, and she wanted to go over and do music ministry. And so when I took her over to Uganda, I just heard the Lord very clearly say, this is the place, this is where you're supposed to be working. And so just began praying about that and trying to figure out, what is it we can do in this place. And so I was planning for the next year when I was taking my daughter back. I thought, well, maybe we're supposed to work we knew about a place that had foster care families in Uganda.
Right.
And I thought, well, maybe we're supposed to work with those women because of our experience and things like that. But I didn't know Pastor Gerald at the time, but he was over there praying to God because he started working with the Batwa, and he just didn't even know what to do. All these people were bringing these orphan children to him, and his goal was he wanted to minister to these people, but they kept bringing him the orphans, and he was getting more and more children, and he didn't know exactly, what am I supposed to do? I don't have any money, and where we're located, it's not like people want to come there. There's
Right.
not a lot of modern conveniences. And so he was up on the prayer mountain praying. He says that he was praying up there for 40 days, and he came off the mountain. And that was when, I guess, kind of Facebook for me was just getting really kind of started. And there used to be, when you got a message from somebody you didn't know, it would go into like this folder you didn't even know existed. Well, he came off of the mountain, and we had no mutual friends or anything. And he said that he decided to check on the news and what was going on in the world. And he got onto his Facebook account, and he said, my picture popped up. And he just heard the Lord say, this is the helper I'm sending you. And so he sent me a message and said, my sister, I believe that you are supposed to come to Uganda to work with the Batwa. And so we began communicating, and my husband and I were praying, and we started doing Skype calls and with him and his wife, and finding out about the work they were doing. And so I was getting ready to take my daughter back to Uganda. This was the following year. And asked some of our Ugandan friends, is it safe to go to that side of the country? And would you come with me? And they're like, sure, Mom Sonya, we'll take you. We'll go with you on this adventure. And so we started off in Kampala, and we took this 13-hour trip across the country and met Pastor Gerald and his wife, Barbara. And that was the beginning of our work there in Uganda.
So let's talk about the work and what you've been able to accomplish. But before we do that, what about the government? How come they're not helping protect these mostly women in the Batwa? I mean, how come they are not being taken care of?
I don't really understand. A lot of what I get from the local government is that they want us to work with their people, not with the Batwa, because the Batwa are just animals. Why would you want to work with them? And so it's just this real, I guess, a backwards kind of thinking about this people group and not understanding who they are. Now, my understanding is that when they originally opened up the where the people could go in and see the gorillas with the tourism, that the Batwa were supposed to get some sort of reimbursement from that. And we have not seen it with the people that we're working with. I don't know, from everything that I've heard from other people, organizations that work with the Batwa in Uganda, we have not seen that the people group get any kind of reimbursement or any kind of monies from tourism. And so it's just they don't have voting rights. We did actually fill out forms for our children to see if they would give them national IDs. We still have not gotten those. We put those in over a year ago. But we're hoping that
for each of them.
For each of our kids to have national IDs. And so we're hoping, and we also took some of our women in as well and had them fill out the forms, but we have not gotten any response from those as of yet. But that's been over a year. But our goal is that if we can get them national IDs, then they have to be considered citizens. And if they become citizens of the country, then they have rights, within the country to be able to do certain things, like to be able to vote and to have a voice and all of that. So it's very challenging where we work at because a lot of times schools won't allow the children to come into school because they are animals. We've had to work out special contracts with certain medical clinics We do have some contracts with some schools for our older children, but they are not in the area where we're working at. So the further away you get from the area, you can meet more people who are willing to work with us. But when you're right there in that area, most people do not want to work with you. We've been out in villages where we purchased food in those villages so that we're supporting those local villages, and that we help our people out with giving them some food during certain times of the year when it's more difficult for them to find food. And we try to, all the Batwa will come down into the village, and the people, they'll spit on you. They're very hateful. They don't understand why you would work with these people. So it's just a mindset that has been set in place for many, many years, that people just don't understand and can't look at them as human beings. They look at them as just, I guess I've had one of my friends from Uganda tell me they are the poorest of the poor of the poor in Uganda.
Wow. And so they
people
have
just
no
look at them
rights.
differently.
They have no rights because they're considered animals. So how long have you been working over there, and what have you been able to accomplish?
So we started working over there in May of 2015, and that was when we initially started our feeding program for 130 children. We now have 300 children that we take care of. We have started our own school. We have a pregnancy care center for our women. Most of our women have no idea what's going on with their bodies when they're pregnant. We partnered with an organization actually from Florida called Beautiful Feet International, and that organization came over and they helped us to get a pregnancy care center started. We went through the training, got some of our staff trained, and then so we were able to this past year take over an ultrasound machine. And that was just a huge eye opener. I mean, if you could just imagine these women seeing these children inside of them for the very first time, it was like a miracle. They were just speechless in what they were seeing inside of their bodies. So we've started a pregnancy care center, and we were able to get women vitamins. We're able to get clothing for their babies up to the age of 1. We teach them about parenting skills, teach them about what's going on with their bodies, how to take care of their bodies. Because alcohol is an issue, we talk to them a lot about alcoholism, and just work with them. We've just seen a huge improvement in our women and what's going on, and a deeper understanding what's going on with their pregnancies. We also were able to save several lives of women who had to have emergency C-sections, and so that was just a huge thing. We've planted churches. We have 5 churches now that have been planted.
Wow.
We have done 2 wells, and we continue to do water sanitation training. We worked with another organization called Wine to Water, located in Boone, North Carolina. They helped train us on how to use water filtration systems. And we started off in a village called Mukungu, and we're able to train them on how to use a water filter. If you can imagine, these people have no clean water. They have to go down. They live up at the top of the mountain, and they have to go all the way down into the valley just to be able to collect dirty water. And in a jerry can that holds about 5 gallons of water, and it's about 40 pounds, and they have to carry it back up to the top. A lot of these women are pregnant. They have a baby on their back. They're carrying the water on their head, and they're carrying firewood in their arms. And if you can imagine having to do that just to collect dirty water.
Just to have water, and then they have to clean it when they get there. And
Yes.
I want to make it clear that these women are not having sex with their boyfriends and their husbands. The reason they're getting pregnant is because they are being raped.
Many of them are getting raped, yes. And we see, we've had, during this COVID, while COVID has been going on all over the world, we've even had, the mandates that have been set place in Uganda. And so because of that, we've had a lot of challenges because the government shut down the boarding schools, they shut down the orphanages. And so we had 2.5 days to even find emergency homes for our children. And even within those homes, when the girls are going to collect water, they're not in the environment of where we've raised them. And so within these homes that they're in, they're not as protected as what they were when they were with us. And so we've had a huge issue with our girls being raped when they're going to collect water. We've had to worry about, we've had phone conversations with them, video chatting when Pastor Gerald has been able to get out there. Initially, travel was not allowed. And so all we could do was, Pastor Gerald could just, check in on phones and things, but they couldn't get in there to see the children because of the mandates set in place. But we found out that as soon as we found out, we took an action to help our girls, but they were begging us to give them pants so that they couldn't be easily raped. We had some of our girls, they were told that if they marked themselves, if they put burn marks on their arms, that if they put these markings on themselves, that they wouldn't be taken for sacrifices because they were Batwa. And so our girls have just been living in a lot of fear since all these mandates have been taking place. And it's just been really challenging for the ministry because even with that, we've had to take care of foster care families on top of taking care of the 300 children. We've had to take care of these families. We've had to take care of their children. And it's put a big strain on the ministry just to be able to keep everybody in places.
Well, I am just in awe of, what you're doing and the whole situation in general. Where can people learn more about the Batwa and learn more about what Hope Ministries is doing?
We have a great documentary on our website, which is at www.hopeministryuganda.org. And you can go onto there. You can also find us on Facebook. You can find us on all the different social media platforms and learn more about us there. But if you go to the website, that's where our documentary is. It's about a 13-minute documentary, and it will just show you who we work with, what we're doing, and the vision for the future of Hope Ministries Uganda. And if it's okay if I share a little bit about the future,
yeah, we have about 1 minute. Go ahead. It's all yours.
So there is hope. There is hope, and we purchased a large piece of land, and we call it the Land of Living Hope. And the goal of that is to be able to build homes for these children and have family units there. We'll have either widows, or we'll have some of our women from the community who have healthy marriages. That will get to become house parents. And so each home will have 8 children in it. So we have about 40 acres, and we'll eventually have a school there. We'll have the homes, we'll have our church. We're in the process right now of building a large multi-purpose building. We have a gardening project going on there. And so there's just a lot there that we are looking at that's building hope for this people group.
That's so beautiful. I can't commend you enough, and I hope this at least brings some awareness to what you are doing and the Batwa tribe, and hopefully the work can continue. And if nothing else, that this tribe of women, and I guess there's a few men and children, of course, involved as well, that they are recognized as human beings, because they are human, they're live human beings. And you're doing such beautiful work, and I really appreciate you being with us today, Sonya. You're doing beautiful work, and God bless you, and thank you so much for what you are doing.
Thank you, Linda. I appreciate you letting us be on here today.
Absolutely. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. Women have needs too, and right now I need to have some more compassion, and especially for the Batwa. Thank you, Sonya, and thank you everyone. Have a great day.